Hey guys, welcome to the Fig House. Pull up a chair, join us at the table for our convo today. We're going to be talking about something that is a sensitive subject to talk about, but we thought that as a family it'd be great for us to not just have you at the table and hear the conversation, but also hear us kind of have a conversation about it and how we've walked out journeys individually regarding mental health and regarding the idea of anxiety, depression, and what that looks like and what that can look like for a family as members. How do we identify it, or how do we just process through it and help each other through it? So we just want to go ahead and have this convo today. So grab a snack, you got time, pull up a chair and join us for the convo today. So, mental health, huh? I think, personally for me, guys, like growing up, there were some things that I went through that I experienced, and learning how to walk things or identify them. I think for us growing up, it was things that we just never talked about. So I don't know if you can relate, but I think for me, it was kind of like taboo. You never mention it. You're fine. You're going to be all right. Just get over it, right? It's all in your head. And I think these are things that sometimes are misleading to be able to process really what I'm going through. So I dealt with anxiety. I've dealt with depression as a young person, now as an old person. So I think those are some things personally that I've gone through that I know we've already had convos about, right? We've talked about, but just want to be able to allow people to join us at the table for this convo. So what are some things that you guys have experienced that, we're willing to share and talk about and kind of do it from a different place now of walking something that we've been healing through or working through? But
I think that everybody deals with these things. I don't think it's something I think we make it seem that only certain people go through like depression, anxiety, and that it's not a normal thing. And to be honest, it's a really normal thing. There's so many people that I've talked to that not have the same experience but similar experiences, whether anxiety or depression or even any other like mental state. So I think being able to talk about it will hopefully bring families closer, hopefully open up a door for them to talk to each other like we have. So I could start us off. I think seeing our family and our family dynamic, it's hard because so many people would think that we're just like, even though we are such a great family, it's like that none of us have experienced real family issues. And I think that that's not true. But I think that it's because of those real family issues that have brought us closer. And I think it's talking about it or just sharing with it that'll hopefully bring other families closer too. I struggled a lot with depression. And I think that's something that I don't really bring up often. Not because I'm ashamed of it, but just because I don't know how people react if I bring it up. So it's like, I've struggled a lot with depression and the idea of being suicidal. And I think that's a real issue that not a lot of people talk about. And I think looking back now, it's like, I see that as a blessing. And I think that that's what it needs to become. It's like when we go through these things, it's not because of what we're going through, but what will become after that. And I think calling it a blessing is something that brought me closer to God and closer to my family. So I think, hopefully I'll use that experience, and I have to talk to people with going through the same thing or having similar feelings. So that's something that I've definitely struggled with.
I thank you for just being vulnerable and open to sharing it now with people. We've experienced it as a family. We saw it happen and we saw it unfold. And I think there's some things that in this, we come from a faith-based background, meaning that we believe in Jesus Christ. We are active people in our community, in our church. And those are things that I think are so important to talk about, because I think especially in the context of church, there's always this idea of, we do come as you are mentality, but then as soon as we see people kind of dealing with certain things, we kind of distance ourselves from it, or you kind of find ways to kind of, I don't know, that's a lot. But to be honest, we're, as much like you shared, I think it's so beautiful to share that we all have a sense of brokenness. We all have a sense of something that we're all learning to be better at, healing from, walking out. So there's no one that's exempted from going through something. And I think what you mentioned earlier about not being able to feel like you can say something based on the reaction from it, I think that's the hardest thing, right? Like dealing with something and you feel like you have a safe group, and we talk about having a safe group of people around us, but at the same time still not feeling like, hey, I can really have this convo with you because I don't know the way you're going to process or what you're going to tell me after that. So, or change with me or not be the same with me. So there's a lot of things that are tied into that. I think it's such an important subject to talk about. We by any means don't have the full answer to anything, right? We're just sharing with you guys as a family, what are some things that we've experienced, one as parents, them as children, for us as a family, but how have we walked this out? So even as Matthew shared something so close, we did go through something as a family a couple years ago that was a very difficult thing for us to go through with transitioning, right? Talking about transition, or how do you as a family walk out of something into something. And those have been some things for us that in the last couple of years have been really heavy subjects. And I think in that, our oldest son, Matthew, right, as he's sharing with you, went through a very difficult experience, went through a heavy state of depression. As parents, how do we identify that? That was something that Rachel and I would talk about. Like, I'm very intentional, and we're very intentional about looking at our kids and observing them, not just seeing them, but observing them and knowing when something doesn't feel right and knowing when something is off. And we would look at Matt and say, hey, like, I know he's smiling, I know he's laughing, but something is different. And I think those were the convos that we led us to a place where we can start having the conversation as a family and say, hey man, like, what's going on? Are you good? Are you not good? What's going on? And I remember it was actually a very late evening. I was up at like midnight, maybe 1 a.m. We were with Rachel watching TV, and I couldn't shake this heavy feeling of my son and something happening, something heavy. And, it was something that we've never been the type of parents to kind of like grab their phones and start going through their phones or things of those nature. We've really respected and say, hey, like, you guys turn in your phones at a certain time, you go to sleep, and, they would leave their phones downstairs and they kind of go to bed. And those are some ground rules that we laid out as a family, right? To not have technology accessible late at night in their own room, just safeguards, right? So those are things that we've operated from. But during that time, I really felt this heaviness to be able to go into like his phone. I was like, I feel like there's something that I need to do. And I did grab his phone, and I think that was the first time that we had really identified that something was going on that was a lot more than we had imagined. And in that moment, I believe I started crying as a father, as a husband. I talked to Rachel, and we immediately started talking. We called Matthew down, I think, if you remember that convo. And, we started talking, and we addressed some things. We prayed over it, like as a family. We immediately started praying over our son. Rachel and I both laid hands over our son and just praying over what he was experiencing, what he was feeling, but at the same time saying, hey, we're here. Whatever it is that we need to walk out or talk about, we're here for it. We're accessible, whatever it is. And I think those are some things that I've learned, right? When you have the aspects of mental health, the judgment aspect that comes from it, right? So there's this idea of like, you're judged, you're seen differently. So as a parent, immediately for us, our heart was never to come in from a judgment perspective. It was more of like, yo, what is it? Like, we're here. What's going on? We'll love you. We'll hug you. Whatever you need to do, you need to do, and we're here for you through that. I call that a safe place to fail. We've called that as a family something that we've created as parents, a safe place to fail. Not necessarily meaning that we encourage the failing aspect of things, but it's a safe place. A safe place to make mistakes. It's a safe place to learn from, because there's no judgment. There's only this heart of love for you in spite of what's happened, right? So I think that's something that we've created as a family, as a marriage, that we've really walked out. And I think during this time with Matthew, that was something that we experienced. It was a difficult thing. I know Sarah's going to share a little bit more about some of her experiences, and David as well. But, we just want to share this with you, because by no means do we have an answer to this, right? We're not doctors. We're not trying to say this is the route. But we want to talk about it, because these are things that I believe sometimes are most likely are unspoken within the context of a family. And what happens in that is there is a difficulty to heal. There is a difficulty to help, to be an aid. And then it becomes this weird offset of like judgment. And then now I don't talk to you. Now we're different. And now our family dynamic has changed because of it. So I think for us, that was always the fight was for family, not against family. So I think that's just something we want to share with you guys. And we want to, share some more experiences, but just want to touch base on that a little bit and expand a little bit. And, we can talk more in detail about certain aspects of things, but I think it was important for us as a family to see those moments, to see God move in those moments, to see that we, Rachel mentioned in another podcast, which was, we were talking about this idea of parents and feeling like you're failing, right? There's this actuality of seeing your son and daughter experience something that can lead you to a place of feeling like, yo, what did I not do right? Right? Where did I fail? Where did I drop the ball? But the truth of the matter is that we all have different experiences. So it doesn't speak of me. It's his journey. Now, I, as a parent, how do I love him? How do I stand with him? And how am I there for him? And I think that's the biggest thing as a parent. That's my job and my duty. It's nothing other than that. Sometimes we think control is, but that never works out. So it's never about control. It's about how do I equip and help and raise for this person to now become an adult and now live a lifestyle that's not just value based of our family, but also a reflection of who Jesus Christ has been in our family and in their own lives. So I think that's the importance of that. But I know, Sarah, you've had some experiences with different aspects of what mental health can be, correct?
Yeah, I mean, for a while I think I struggled with really bad anxiety. And I think right now, especially during this time, so many people relate to that because quarantine for them brought a lot of anxiety and depression because they weren't able to go out. So I think anxiety definitely is not something that's like people should take lightly. Like I think it's a really serious thing that affects a lot of people in like a really difficult way. So
wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think I think you can expand a little bit on some of the times that we've seen kind of Sarah's journey in that, right?
Yeah. I think it's been I think when I first realized how bad your anxiety was I guess I hadn't seen it of how difficult it was for someone with anxiety because I didn't really experience anxiety the way you did. So I remember when you first got it, I would just be like, Sarah, don't feel like that. Like, you're okay. Like, don't worry. And just watching your journey, watching you go through like those hard nights, those hard days has just been, they've been hard, but I've seen the growth that you've had throughout these years and just you being so brave and sharing about it now makes me so proud because I've seen you in your darkest moments. And yeah, I think just sometimes we don't understand or we don't see it because we don't go through it. So with your anxiety, that's how I felt. And I felt sometimes, frustrated because I'm trying to help you, but it's deeper than just someone telling you, get over it or feel better or because it's something that you're struggling with. Like no one understands it but you. So it's been an interesting journey just watching you and just seeing you grow and even talk to people about it. I'm just so proud of you. And, I think it is something that, like you said, people should not take lightly because I've seen it. And yeah, if you haven't been around it or don't know about it, you could just assume it's something that someone gets over, but it's not. It's a journey. And I think you've done things to help you with your anxiety. And I know there's still times that you get it, but even when you talk to me, you're like, I know what it is. Like, I'll be okay. I just gotta like do something or,
catch your breath.
Catch your breath. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm proud of you and just watching you. I know you're going to help a lot of people that go through it because you know the pain and you know the feeling. So,
and I think, those are things that as parents, if, you're a parent and, you've experienced the moment of your child being sick or something happening, there is this feeling, right, of, there's nights that we would stay awake the whole night just with Sarah in her bed, or she would come to our bed. And those are things that not many people knew about, so I think for the people that have known our family and they're like, man, you guys are a great family. Like, I think there's an aspect of our closeness that there's a reason for. So I think people like Rachel mentioned that they're, you don't understand it unless you've gone through it. So I think when we look at our family, we continue to look at it from a place of victories that we've had in our faith and in their growth as individuals, but we walk this out together, celebrating these victories. So I think the closeness that we have to each other has come from the place of knowing our pains and our hurts and our struggles. And I think anyone that, if you're in a family or if you're in a friendship, like I think that builds your friendship, that builds your relationship with someone, is knowing their struggles, knowing their pain, but at the end of the day, you're still standing with them. And sometimes that's what's needed, is just someone to continue to stand there in spite of your flaws or your hurts or the illness or whatever you're processing, to know that you're not walking it alone. And obviously we have a faith that allows us to hope in Jesus Christ and know that he is there for us, that he is standing with us, that he is comforting us. But there is something also tangible about a family standing, walking things together. And I think for us, that's really been our journey. So as you're hearing our oldest son struggle with depression, suicidal thoughts. You're hearing our youngest daughter struggle with the idea of anxiety. And I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with anxiety myself personally. Like I literally would get panic attacks and I think I was having a heart attack. The paramedics would show up to the house. I'm calling Rachel, telling her, I'm sorry if I was ever a bad husband, like take care of the kids, and feeling these moments of like doom, impending doom. And those feelings are things that not many people can understand. And sometimes we get into these Christian terms and the Christianese aspect of things, of wanting to tell people, hey, it's going to be all right. Like, you're fine. It's all in your head, or you know what, that's not a big deal. But I think we've learned so much in our journey, seeing what our children have gone through, what we've gone through, but also understanding the empathy behind it. When we look at Jesus Christ modeled empathy. And I've shared this before on my social media platform, but the idea is that Jesus was empathetic. He was compassionate. He loved people for where they're at. He ran to people, not away from people. There was a group of people that were lepers in the Bible that Jesus went to them. He didn't run away from them when everybody marginalized them and cast them out because they had an illness. He went to them. So I believe that there's an importance with going to and not away from. So, even as a parent, as a husband, it's a hard thing. There's times that we cried at night just holding each other, just talking in our room about our kids and praying and asking God to stand with us and to help us in this and strengthen them and strengthen us. So we've had some moments as a family that absolutely what you see today is only by grace, is only by mercy, but it's also us holding on to hope and holding on that our only answer and solution is Jesus Christ. So we just want to share that with you guys, but there are things that we definitely have processed and gone through that were deeper. Like, I mean, there was moments where Sarah, at some point, there was going through an eating disorder when she was very young. And I think those are things that we were looking at that had now come into our family that we didn't know how to process. We didn't have people that we can go to and say, hey, how do you, I mean, there was a lot of research, a lot of prayer, but also a lot of time being present. How am I present during this process for them and not zone myself out through what they're going through? So it became very intentional. There were things that as Matthew was going through it became as a father, as a parent, hey man, you want to go for a boba? You want to go grab an ice cream? Let's go talk. What's on your heart? What's on your mind? Constant check-ins. And I don't know, you guys can share more into some of that as sons and daughters. What does that look like for you guys when we've gone through that, and as parents, the efforts that we've made to try to kind of walk that with you guys? Or if you want to share something else, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, Dave, what's something?
I mean, for me personally, I've kind of struggled with more or less both at the same time as far as it goes for depression and anxiety. I have had panic attacks. I've passed out, and I've had multiple times where like it felt like I couldn't breathe, or like my vision was going black and blurry. And a lot of the times I never really shared when it happened. It kind of just happened, and I took a minute to kind of compose myself and keep going like if nothing happened. And for a while there was a time where I didn't really know what I was feeling, because for a long time I was just kind of trying to hide my feelings a bit during a time when a lot of things were going south and going bad. You know, I didn't really have a minute to distract myself or try and find a way to look at the positive through it. And then, you know, it got to a point where I couldn't really feel anything besides just anger. I didn't know if I was happy or if I was sad or if I was frustrated about smaller things or about something bigger. And I didn't really know who I was, really. So it was a really hard time. And I honestly, the days kind of blurred together. There might have been good or bad moments throughout the day, but honestly, at the end of the day, it never really mattered to me because it always felt the same. So it was very hard because even I didn't know what I was feeling. So how can I communicate or talk to someone if I don't know whether I'm angry or happy? And it was very hard to keep going on because at the end of the day, I didn't know if my life was being lived. And it was very hard to keep waking up not knowing if I was enjoying life. So during that time, it felt so lonely, and I didn't know if I should ever just, you know, show myself again because I didn't know if anyone would notice the difference.
Appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable and transparent. You know, again, these are moments that we've experienced as a family. I mean, our oldest is 18. We've been parents for a very long time. And in the midst of that, we've never once alluded to the idea of perfection. What we have is alluded to the idea that we hold on to something that gives us strength and that gives us hope in the middle of. And that's really what I believe as a family in these journeys that we've all experienced. It was never this idea of what we've done great as much as it is, God, what have you done in us that allows us to be here still, celebrating these moments. You know, and as you're talking about loneliness, as you're talking about feeling of purpose, understanding purpose, I mean, those are things that I've gone through at some point in my life, questioning the idea of purpose, questioning the idea of, you know, what is great, what isn't great? Am I numb? Am I feeling numb through these moments? And am I just walking without analyzing really what's going on or doing kind of an inner search, right? Of like, hey, let me check my heart. Where am I at? And as David's talking about this idea of like not knowing even what I feel, like I'm just like feeling a huge plethora of feelings at this time that just becomes just one jarbled feeling. Yeah. And I think I just want to acknowledge and speak to these things because they are real things that can either creep up on you. They have creeped up on you. It's something you've gone through, you experienced, or you're going through presently. So we just want to share these things that we've each experienced. Yeah. You know, I know that Rachel has had her journey and I've had mine. And, you know, as you see, as a family, we've gone through a long journey of different feelings, of different things that we've processed and felt. So this subject is really, I believe, has gone, it could even become a part 2, to be honest, to talk about at some point, because there's so much more to unpack. But I think today we can end with the idea of knowing that as we've felt these things, you know, and maybe the questions can come out of this is, you know, what did we do practically as a family that allowed us to help each other through this or be there for each other through this, or what intentionality did we take? So we can definitely do that as a part 2 at some point, to kind of share with you guys. But if you're out there and you're experiencing anything, please, if you have a safe place, share that. If you have someone to talk to, share that. If you don't, find someone that you can share that with. I think as our kids are expressing what they've gone through, there were moments that, much like Dave said, that he was kind of keeping that to himself, not sharing. But I think Dave can attest to the idea that it all came out in a moment of conversation with him and actually addressing some of the things that I saw in him as a father and asking him questions that allowed him to kind of start opening up and share more and more. The same with Matthew, the same with Sarah. So I think it does come out of questions and conversations, and it allows things to be seen that maybe weren't as visible right? When we felt like we missed it, we didn't see it, what was happening. So it is the intentionality, I believe, of conversation and questions, but also my eyes, like intentionally seeing my family, not just being in the house. And I think sometimes that's a thing that you can be in a home and not be there. So I think there was a season in my life where my father was an absentee father. He worked a lot, and I'm grateful that he worked, but at the same time, he wasn't there. So he wasn't around to see things or talk to me or tell me things. So there is moments where now you can also be present in your home, but then at the same time not be present, right? And I think those are things that we need to look at, address, some things that maybe we need to do like an inner search of like, hey, I'm here, but maybe I'm not. I remember Matthew had, and I've known this young man too, but he was Matthew. I considered him Matthew's friend. He came over to hang out with us for the weekend at the house, and I think Matthew was on his phone or David was on his phone, and he kind of looked at them and he kind of went like this. And when he did that, we were like, what is he doing? And he did it again. And he said, hey, Matthew, we're here. And I thought that was always so deep. And I'm reminded constantly when I have conversations about that, about being present. Because how many times have we done this within the context of our home, correct? And we're not there. And I've seen that, I've done it, and I think those are things to be addressed and looked at least, that allow us to be more present within whatever situation we're going through, looking at our children, looking at our marriages as well, being intentional about those things. So I think we're going to end today's subject with that. We'll definitely have a part 2 at some point to be able to hear the practicality of it. But I just want to thank you guys for being vulnerable, for being so transparent, and being so brave to share your stories, to share your journey. And we're just grateful as your parents to see what you guys have walked out, but to see how you've walked it out, and to see the way that you've addressed and grown and learned from and continue to grow in. So I think we're just honored to be your parents, to see the persons that you are becoming. And we're here to love you through it, to hold you through it, to encourage you through it. And we're in your corner. We're your biggest fans for sure. If I could wear a cheerleading shirt and fit into one, I'd wear it. But I don't think I fit into a cheerleading shirt. But we love you guys from the Fig House to your house. We thank you guys for having this, pulling up a chair and hearing our conversation today as we talked about something that is such a sensitive subject to talk about. But we love you guys, and can't wait to share with you the next episode.
Bye.
Thank you guys.